few notes before I should wait because sometimes it doesn't engage and drive right away. Good morning. Few notes before I get started on this video. I always think of my very first video, Bow Chat with John Riggs, and it's like deer in the headlights kind of. Watch that video though, and look for that walnut bow that I had made for a grandma to give to her grandson. That was a Oneida. They had these scallops just that you can see in the belly side. They didn't go through, so it wouldn't have been like, you would maybe see in the Great Lakes region have scallops cut into the sides of the bow. Just in the belly, they were at an angle. Really cool effect. Secondly, one of my newest favorite bow channels, aside from Andy's Workshop. I want to be like Andy when I grow up. Who do I look up to? One of them is Andy. Then there's Dan Santana, and then of course Dreamcraft, along with a bunch of other ones. But yeah, I like Robert Frost. He really concentrates more on traditional. He loves him some hill style longbows. And then I received a question/comment from a fellow in Denmark. Cheers from Michigan, Denmarkian. A note within a note. We've all heard of Vikings. Not just one group, right? There were Swedish Vikings, Norwegian Vikings, and Danish Vikings. And they all varied somewhat. The Danes were the ones that kicked ass on a greater world stage. The Danish. Yeah, they were the ones to watch out for, although the Norwegians and the Swedish were BA too. You never hear, well, Finland is in Scandinavia. What's up with Finland? Well, they kind of stayed away from Finland because Finland was noted to be strong in magic. They were witchcrafting their way throughout the northern world there. And I don't want to draw light on it, but also their women were noted to be extremely beautiful, but you didn't want to make them mad. They would put the hex on you. It's interesting stuff. But the fellow from Denmark, see, I know everything. I'm the oracle of all knowledge. Good and bad. But the fellow from Denmark was wondering, did I have any ideas for repurposing cross-country skis? And first of all, I had to laugh in a good way. Of course it was somebody, from that area of the world that wanted to know about repurposing cross-country skis. Off the bat, I've seen people make bows from skis and stuff, but skis are meant to be skis. I've always made cargo sleds. I can't really think anything offhand besides making like a fast cargo sled or some kind of sled type of thing that would utilize skis. I'm kind of drawing a blank right now, but I'll give it some thought, my Denmarkian friend. But this is entirely about paddle bows. I have one other bow I was working on yesterday, an Osage bow, but let's just talk about paddle bows. What I did earlier is I need to find my little strip. Making good on a transaction. You've seen this before. Well, it came in a little heavy. I done screwed up. So the fellow, check this out. I'm not going to call you out by name, Steve, because I don't want to pick on you. But it really shows what us bow people are made of. He's like, it's a little heavy. I wanted it 50 pounds. It's a buff. Keep the money that you made from this bow. Give it to somebody that could use it. And it's like, no. I'll just work it down. So let's see where we are at. I am going to take my arrow, which is marked. So I'm going to draw this thingamajigger to about the back of the bow, a little inward. And I need to tie my arrow to the string here so it doesn't fall out. I shoot from the right side and the left side. Gosh. And sometimes I get a little confused. Yeah, I'm kind of a bilateral bow shooter here. And when you shoot from the left and the right side, sometimes it's like, what side should I put the arrow on? I can confuzzle myself. Let's see here. It's fresh. It'll drop down a pound, maybe, you know, after it's been strung a while. There it is. Everything in its place. Let's draw this puppy back. I'm going to exercise a little bit before. You know, I just kind of... Okay, Bo. It's about time to get into action. You know, I don't necessarily want to string something and then just cold draw it. But let's just see here. Oh, you want to see the raven? The raven speaks. Take that, my Denmarkian friend. Did I pull it all the way back? Let's remove the arrow. Depuck the arrow. Make sure the bow doesn't fall off the tabla. Let's look at this, and we are at... Oh, we're at 55 pounds. I'm telling you, this is... It was at 52. Again, you know, if you keep it, if you just string it cold, it's going to be a little heavier. Let's just work this thing a little bit. It was at 50 pounds yesterday. Now it's just shy of 55. It goes to show you, you know, this is kind of a pesky thing to do, getting a bow right to the thing. And, you know, frankly, if you're target shooting it, it'll go down a little bit. With age, it'll go down a little bit. Let's give this another pull, and I'm going to have it in the light so I can actually see how far back I'm pulling it. I'm not going to de-arrow it here. Oh, clunk. Okay, 53. And I know it seems kind of funky that like I'm shooting. I'd hate to have to scrape off the varnish that I put on yesterday. Yeah, 52. I think I yanked it back a little too far. Let's try this thing again. Yeah, we're between 50 and... Where is it? Is that camera going to focus on that? It's dead set between 50 and 55. I think my arms are shrinking because how was it? 28 inches at draw length. About the same. Well, you know what? I'm going to give this another goo, as Mike from, what is that? That chapter would say, give it a goo. I could just hear his kids, hey Daddy, let's give it a goo. Yeah, I am going to, just to get it closer to where he wants it. Yep, I Helmsman spar urethane varnished it yesterday. I mean, I was hitting at 50 pounds. Maybe I pulled it like a fraction of an inch shorter. But yeah, I'm going to work that down when I get back today. That's a priority. You know, when a bow comes back to me, to get re-tillered down to the final weight. So yeah, nothing but a thing. Let's go on to this one. Just talking about paddle bows. And this is, you know, this is part of it. This is part and parcel of making and selling bows. You got to get it right. You know, if people want what they get, what they pay for, so you make it that way. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This is, I'm not too sure on that because it sticks out. Will I hunt with this bow? Probably not. So I can go kind of, that's fantastic. If I was to hunt with it, it probably wouldn't be the start thing. Actually, this is kind of like not turning me on. I'd probably change those white with the red just to subdue it. Got kind of a subdued, even though it's striking pattern there. I'm probably going to change those white ones. turn them from white to red. That was just too ambitious of me. Let's see what this bow is about. I've got the small loop on it. Oh, a note. The Raven bow came with one of my tie-down strings, and then Steve replaced it with a 2-loop string, which is perfectly fine. So I wound up whipping the ends. I sanded off the urethane where that was going to get glued on, and then whipped it, to quote Stewie Griffin, with sinew, just to protect the tips. That minor weight is not going to affect anything. Let us tie our arrow to this bow. What is this one about? At 27 inches. I like 27 inches. Again, I get confused. Shooting off the right and the left. I like that 2-loop string so much, I'm going to use it on this bow to test determine the draw weight. There we go. Let's give it a go. You want it? I love shooting this thing. It's going to stay wherever the weight is. Just saying. That's a fun weight for me right there. It is it. I don't know if you can see that. It's above 60 pounds. I like that weight. It's a nice weight. I like 40-pound bows. I obviously like 25-pound white cedar bows. I am multi-directional. Let's put that there. I mean, you gotta admit, that makes a statement. Just like a Danish Viking. Last bit. You can see that once I started fire hardening my paddle bows, if I hadn't fire hardened those, they would have probably been the Talawa bow, probably about 50 pounds. Steve's bow, I'm not going to mention his name, that person. I don't want to pick on you, Steve, so I'm not going to mention your name. We're all friends here. Would have probably been under 50 pounds. Fire hardening, it changes it. I mean, the belly, I'm not going to say that it is comparable to white oak. White oak, red oak, white oak stiffness. Probably toughness too. White oak is an amazing bow wood. But fire hardening these things it's kind of like a glider in a thermal. Gets in a rising column of air, and it's hard to get down. If you were a free flight model airplanist, you would have to have a dethermalizer. It's got a timer, fuse, whatever you want to do. And when that burns up, the fuse hits the rubber band, releases the cord. It keeps that rear stabilizer down. It pops up and the plane comes down like a parachute. I do not have dethermalizers on these bows, aside from some form of scraping. It's my little K-bar. So, in order to produce a 40-pound paddle bow to these dimensions, and these are basically almost as thin as they can get and still remain bow-like efficient, given the density and the stiffness of the wood and everything, I'm going to have to go to another material. So, you're going to see something that you've never seen before. I type in a white cedar bow or western red cedar. Western red cedar is in a whole different genus than eastern red cedar. ERC, not the same thing by any stretch as western red cedar. And I've done a video before on whoever named the junipers and the cedars and the, what is it? They're the family name. I can't. Cypress ACA. Whoever named the cypress, juniper, cedars needs to just get slapped because they really messed up. There's confusion abounding. So, if you look up eastern white cedar bow, northern white cedar bow, again, WTF, Batman. northern white cedar and eastern white cedar, same damn tree. And western red cedar, whatever. I'm only going to say it one more time. The western red cedar, that's my last time to say that. And eastern and northern white cedar, basically the same thing as far as the engineering properties, the MOE and densities and all this stuff. MOE, stiffness, modulus of elasticity, basically the same tree. So I ran to Home Depot yesterday and I bought a beautiful piece of WRC, I'm going to have to say it again, Western Red Cedar. Beautiful grain. I mean, it's like it was a stave-made bow. It runs sideways. Growth rings run stem to stern. Nice belly wood. No noticeable violations. This would be the back. Because when I do these things, I have it so it's curved this way. So it's not a backwards bow where the inside of the tree is the back of the bow. It's like this. Beautiful. And I made it extra wide for like gluing up because there's a knot here and then there's a knot here and I want to center those, so I gave myself wiggle room here. And this will be the very first I'm going to have to say it again, Western Red Cedar. Sorry. Bow, probably the only one on YouTube, unless I've done it before. And the only cedarish thuja, that's the genus of these two things. Bow. I did it. YouTube search. White cedar bow. Not red. There's a lot of eastern red cedar. See? This confusion is just stupid. Bows out there, but I'm the only one apparently that's working with this, what would be considered a subpar bow wood. So I'm going to see if I can't make, and I have to rawhide back it. Adding a tiny bit of weight, but that stuff is so low in density that the rawhide mass and weight are two different things, are going to still result in a low physical bow weight, which will make the relative inferiority, I have to say it, of that bow would still produce a relatively, if it works, efficient bow for the weight. Regardless, it's going to be a beautiful bow. And we're going to see what, in my little test, it's in there because I've been shooting it, my little white cedar bow. Fire hardening has appeared to help the belly avoid chrysaling. And in my opinion, in my experimentation in this stuff, you can actually have some chrysaling, compression lines, because when the belly has some issues, you can see some lines, transverse lines, I guess it would be, in the belly, and it's still functional. It just, that outer layer, the surface where the greatest amount of compression is taking place, thin layer of crumpled wood, and still be good. But hopefully fire hardening it, the wide limbs, the elasticity of the backing. This is a puzzle. If you were to have a bow and you had fiberglass tape on the back, right? It's not gonna stretch whatsoever. It's gonna probably change where the neutral plane is, and it's gonna cause more stuff to happen on the belly. If you have a flexible or a stretchy backing on here, it's going to stretch a little bit, it's going to compress a little bit, so you're not going to force all the work onto the belly. And so if I was to take that white cedar bow, I guess I'm just doomed to keep repeating that. You're going to take that white cedar bow and put a flexible or a stretchy backing on it. Like there's some stretch on this rawhide that it's not going to affect it like if I put drywall tape on the back, which I would never do. The other thing I can do is fire harden it, and I've thought about this. If I massy finish the belly, or just an epoxy on the belly. Epoxy has a pretty good compressive strength. It's just a question of if it's going to delaminate, because it doesn't really soak in. But not in the back. You can massy finish, thinning down epoxy, and put it on a sinew bow, and I could, don't look at it. The sinew bow I've been working on the bench here, because it's paddle bow day. If I was to massy finish a sinew back bow, it's fine. If you sinew back, or if you massy finish a sinew back bow, it's not going to break. If you massy finish a rawhide backing, it'll just crack like an egg. It's weird. And I did that 45-pound paddle bow, not fire hardened, so I was able to, make it to these dimensions and get it 45 pounds easy. And I massy finished it. And I drew that thing back. And before I got to half draw, snap. It just snapped right across the rawhide. Which, it's not going to do that with sinew. Think, but again, that epoxy soaked into the rawhide and it ruined it. Well, with that, it's a long video, 21 minutes. Woo! Credit you for watching the whole thing. I'm going to call it to a close. I'm going to make some breakfast and prepare to slaughter some watermelons today. It's fruit cutting day. They tell me it's Saturday. That's all.